format. In order to keep these public, we stream them all live to YouTube.
Okay.
Last thing I need to do is go through our hearing script that basically just covers the procedure for the hearing. Then we'll jump right into to the applicant's presentation here. So this is the September 15th, 2021 session of the zoning hearing examiner docket. My name is David Sturkey. I'm the zoning hearing examiner for the city of Cincinnati, and I'll preside over this hearing. The case before us today is case number ZH20210125. The purpose of this hearing is to allow applicants and any opposing parties to testify and to offer and refute evidence and testimony. This hearing will follow the rules found in the zoning code and the supplemental rules of the zoning hearing examiner. All testimony and evidence that an applicant or any opposing party wishes to offer must be presented at this hearing. The hearing will proceed as follows. The applicant's attorney, or the applicant's agent will first present the applicant's case. If there were anyone here from the public, they would then have an opportunity to present after the applicant had presented its case. In the event that anyone offered any testimony in opposition to this application, the applicant would have an opportunity to rebut that testimony and or argument offered in opposition. And then finally, the applicant will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. So for our purposes here today, guys, it's just the owners and the applicant here. So I'll give you each an opportunity to tell me about the project. I may have a couple questions for you. And then if you guys want to make any closing statements or any closing remarks, you can, but it'll be pretty informal since there's doesn't appear to be any opposition or any neighbor input here. After all presentations have been made, I will close the hearing. Decisions may be expected within 2 weeks. I may limit or exclude any testimony that I deem irrelevant or outside the scope of the application being considered. I may interrupt any speaker to ask questions or to make any comments. I may also refuse to consider hearsay testimony or documents. In the event of any technical difficulties or unforeseen circumstances with our video conferencing technology, as we've already seen, we'll try and troubleshoot those on the fly as best we can. But to the extent there's some technical issue that prevents us from meaningfully going forward with the hearing, I may continue or postpone the hearing at my discretion. Okay, I think that is it. So last thing I need to do is just swear you guys in. Anyone who intends on providing any testimony needs to be sworn in. So if you could raise your right hand. Need everyone to answer out loud. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Who's going to be taking the lead here on tell me about it?
It depends. Do you want the sort of philosophy behind what we're doing first, or the nuts and bolts of the actual work first?
It depends. I mean, it's totally up to you, however you want to orient it. If you want to tell me a little bit about the project, why you're doing it.
Sure. So I'll lead off, and then Richard can answer all the sort of technical questions.
Just so you know, I'm actually the builder of the project.
Richard is our builder. And so my wife and I bought this house about 5 or 6 years ago. Starting a family. We have one child. He's 2 years old. We're already kind of beginning to feel the stresses of the size of the house with one child. We have always planned on having two. So we really barely have room in the house for just the one. There's no way within the existing space, at least the way it's configured, for us to be able to raise two kids in that house. And the rub for us is, because of the value of the house presently, which is a whole other thing, we don't have the equity to move into somewhere else in our own neighborhood. I think that we would honestly have issues for what we would need remaining in the city of Cincinnati. But B, we have a attachment to our neighbor. We really, really like our neighborhood. Our neighbors on either side we're very, very close with. We are down the street from literally walking distance from our pediatrician, from our pharmacy, from the Kroger. We are in Kilgore schools from when my son is of school age, and we're within walking distance. We're in walking distance to the parks. We really, really enjoy the neighborhood. We feel like it's a good place to raise kids. It's just not feasible in our house the way that it's currently configured. But we think that with what Richard has proposed and submitted the designs for, that it would be very reasonable. We also think, and Richard, I think, will be able to speak to this a little bit more, what we're aiming to do, doesn't compromise any of the historic or aesthetic value of the house or the neighborhood. The front of the house would look, if not completely identical, almost completely identical. But work to the back of these lots is work that has been done by, I literally saw a house on my way out this morning that I hadn't noticed on the street behind us is doing work on the top of their second story as it abuts the back property line. Our across the street neighbors in the paperwork I submitted, I think it's 3748 Aylesboro. They just completed a lengthy and I would say, frankly, larger back addition that we're proposing. Ours, and Richard will get into this, is I think 20 by 24 one story. And then working within the existing framework on the top. The across the street neighbors did something much bigger, and theirs is not in any way offensive to look at or anything like that. I'm using that sort of just as a reference point. Our neighbor,
I had that project earlier this year, actually. I remember it well.
yeah, it looks great. Frankly, we saw them do the whole thing, and ours is much, I think, smaller than theirs. With respect to, I know the concern with the zoning code is sort of how it abuts the back property line. Richard, I think, knows a little bit more about the property stuff than I do, but these lots existed before these zoning codes were passed. I think these codes were passed, frankly, with different size and shape plots in mind. So ours, having been unchanged since it was built already, I don't think conforms. But more importantly, like our next door neighbors have a garage that actually touches the back property line. What we're talking about doing doesn't even come close to the property line. So I don't think that it would be offensive to any of the neighbors. For what it's worth, they're not here, obviously. We spoke to our neighbors on either side of us. The Worthlands, who, if you look out into the right, or on the right side, that's a 2-family. And I honestly don't know Brooke's last name, but our next door neighbor to the left. Not only did neither one of them have a problem with the addition, Brooke, our outside and to the right neighbor who lives in an identical house to us, actually asked, I don't know if we told you this, Richard, asked for our builder's number because she was interested in a similar project. So it's basically that we want to stay in the neighborhood. This doesn't change, we don't think, the nature of how the plot's being used or how the house would look. I don't find it to be too invasive to the purposes of what the zoning is right now. It just does have to get a little bit closer to the back line on one floor. It's only a 1-story addition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. Anything else, Joe, on
I made some notes. Hold on, sorry. I'm really reciting most of the stuff that I submitted. I think a 2-part answer with respect to the municipal code that I think Richard attached to our application. So beyond me rehashing that, I don't have anything additional to add at this point now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for that testimony, that background. Mr. Brown, anything you'd like to add to?
Yeah, with respect to the house itself, the real main crux of the way the existing house was constructed is the issue we have with the staircase. I don't know if you're able to look at the plans or not, but we were actually proposing putting the new staircase to access the second floor in the addition in order to bring those up to code. Currently, the way they're constructed, that second floor, which has a livable space now, that's not truly functional as a second floor living space. The steps won't comply with today's code. So we had to put those steps out into the back of in the new addition so that we have access and make that second floor a livable space to give Joe and Emily basically a master bedroom, master bathroom, and also with today's climate, a home office to be able to work at home as well. I know, a quiet space, but we're doing that within the existing building envelope. The way the steps are currently constructed, there was no way to have feasible access that would comply with today's building codes and egress to be able to access that second floor, which is basically a needed square footage without tearing the house down and building new. You have to be able to reuse that square footage. Secondly, the other thing that's extremely important to note is the kitchen itself. So it's a galley style kitchen, abuts the stairwell. Well, the way that's currently constructed in that neighborhood where Joe and Emily currently reside, it's not up to today's standard by any stretch. So even if they were to try to sell the place to move to a better, like a home that fits their needs, the issue is that kitchen is just not usable. I mean, you can almost sit from one side, stand in the center, and touch both walls by sticking your arms out. I mean, it's just not. You can't. It's not conducive to the neighborhood, to the market. That neighborhood demands a higher value and a nicer kitchen. That's what we're trying to provide for them. And while bringing it up to today's code. The other thing I just want to note is if you looked on the auditor site that I sent, where if you look at the 3 adjoining properties, both side yards and the rear yard, there's actually properties already on the property line to begin with. We've actually created a design where we're going to push out into the backyard, but we're still going to keep green space. We're staying 20 feet off the back property line. I believe the zoning is 35, but we're still going to have a yard for them to use and still stay away from the property, still stay away from the neighbors, so that we're not right on top of anyone. So there's still privacy.
Gotcha. Okay. But you both mentioned that adjacent properties have at least accessory structures that go right up against the property line. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Or is it the homes themselves?
No, it's a detached garage. The lot, if you are looking out of our front door to the right, which is a 2-family, they have a detached garage that abuts the back property line.
And the side yard.
And the side yard.
And then the house directly to the rear, if you walk out your back door, the neighbors to directly behind them also have an accessory structure on the property line that abuts their backyard.
Yep. Yeah, I can see that on cages.
And I believe the house itself is only 6 feet off the property line as it sits anyway, which is already non-compliant to begin with.
And do you guys anticipate any adverse effects at all from this project? Any effects on wind, light, anything like that?
Especially
so we're staying within the existing building envelope. So the entire second floor, we're reusing that. That's why we need the space to get the stairs in the addition. We're adding 2 small dormers under the existing roof line to get head height in the shower. But other than that, we're still staying below the existing height of the ridge line. So no, we should not be affecting any light or any potential views.
Got it. And you're staying in line with the existing side setbacks.
Correct.
The addition won't be extending that at all.
Okay. No.
Okay. And Joe, I think you mentioned this, but this property is located already on a sub minimum or like a non-conforming lot in terms of area and width. Is that right?
Correct.
So and I got this from Richard. So Richard, correct me if and when I'm wrong. The way that this was explained to us is that a standard lot today is usually 100 by 200 feet. And that's sort of what's contemplated by the code. Our lot, as we purchased it and as it's been, is 40 by 120. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's already like a small,
almost half the size of a standard lot. That and the zoning code as it's written, as it applies to this property, appears to be more towards the newer homes, the newer lots. And I think a lot of that has to do with, and I'm speculating here, but there's a lot of teardowns that have been going on, and people are just worried that they're getting too big of an envelope for the property line, in regards to the property lines, based on where the old zoning requirements were. Unfortunately, like I said, the house, I don't know when the zoning.
We're losing you here, Richard.
Well, the zoning regulations were changed or just implemented.
2004.
Hello?
Yeah, we lost you there for split
I'm
second.
sorry. Yeah, what I was just saying was when the new zoning regulations were implemented, these lots were automatically non-compliant just because of where they were built with 0 lot lines, which is why you see a lot of properties with houses like auxiliary structures on the property lines, 6 foot side yards. Unfortunately, it's just a bad label for what was already existing.
Yeah. Which is why I think they built in this variance process.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is 1922. This was built.
Yeah.
22 or 28. It's the 20s. It's a Sears home from the 20s, I think.
Got it. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have, guys. Anything else in closing or otherwise that you wanted to offer?
Just, it would mean the world to me and my family to get this variance and be able to stay in our neighborhood and increase, the usability of our house. It's my wife and I have talked. A lot of people use Hyde Park as a stepping stone for young families to move in until they acquire like the wealth to move out to some of the other suburbs. We intend to stay here for as long as we can. We would like to raise our kids in this home and remain here. We love our neighborhood, and this is an integral step to us being able to do it. So we really hope that the city will grant the variance.
Okay.
And to that point, they are looking at putting a very sizable investment into this property. I mean, it's not a small task, and we spent a lot of time making sure that one is going to be done correctly, done right, and that it's not going to adversely affect anything within the neighbors in the neighborhood. We took a lot of pride in that, and that's why we're staying within the existing envelope and staying within the existing roof structures.
Yeah,
So-
our original plan was to do a total overhaul of the second floor, and Richard told us from the outset, you're not going to be able to do that in this neighborhood. So that's why we pared it down to stay within the envelope, as Richard's calling it, and just make the minimal addition to the back so that we had the kitchen space and we could use the staircase to get upstairs. So we find this to be, I guess, the least restrictive means would be what we would say in the law for something like that.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, thanks, guys. You know, I had a chance to look over the application in full before the hearing, and based on that and based on the testimony here today, I'm going to go ahead and grant the variance. And so what I need to do now, though, is actually write up my findings, write up an official decision. That usually is the portion that sort of takes me the longest. I don't know if I mentioned it in the opening, but that's usually about 2 weeks. And so as soon as I finish that decision, I put it into a PDF and I'll email it to each of you. And so as soon as you have that, you'll be able to move forward with the permitting with the zoning department. In fact, I think knowing that it's going to be approved ahead of time, you can actually start working with zoning on filling out those applications for permitting, or start that process so that as soon as you get the decision, you can just pull the trigger. It might save you like a week if there's any urgency on this one, but I'll have the decision to you within a couple weeks.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Dave.
Sure. Yeah.
Appreciate it, sir.
Looks like a great project, and wish you guys the best of luck. If you have any questions in the meantime, just feel free to shoot me an email, or if you want a status update on the decision, just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you and let you know.
Awesome.
Sure will. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate
it. And then I will. So when will I be able to go and talk to zoning just verbally and say it's the variance has been approved? Can we get this through? Because actually I've already gone through one set of revisions through the building department. So they're just waiting for the zoning approval so I can get the building permit. Yeah.
So I would reach out to them directly. I think they'd be better to answer that question, but I think that before they can actually approve any permitting or do any official action, they need my decision. And so I think it'll still have to wait on that, but I think there are a few administrative things that you can cover with them and get done right now in anticipation of that decision coming out.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate that.
Reach out to them directly, and they're helpful. And I don't know, Trey might be on vacation still. I know you guys worked with him earlier, but if he's not around, you can ask for his boss, Emily A. House. She's very helpful.
Okay. Awesome.
Hey,
All right.
appreciate it so much.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys. We're adjourned.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Bye.